and welcome back to my show. In today's episode, I have a really special guest with me today. His name is Refe Tuma. Hi Refe, how are you today?
Good, how are you? It's great to be here.
It's an awesome time with you here right now. I'm so glad that you could take some time out of your schedule to work this with me. So please introduce yourself and your latest book.
Sure, my name is Refe Tuma, like you said, and I am the author of a book called Frances and the Monster, which came out in August of last year, and which is about an 11-year-old girl who is an aspiring scientist and who finds a secret experiment in her basement that she ends up awakening to her own frustration. I've also got another book coming out, a sequel to Frances and the Monster called Frances and the Werewolves of the Black Forest, which comes out in a couple months, August 22nd. And I'm also the co-author of a series of picture books, the What the Dinosaurs Did series, with my wife, Susan, who's my co-author and co-illustrator of those books. What the Dinosaurs Did Last Night, and What the Dinosaurs Did at School, and What the Dinosaurs Did the Night Before Christmas.
That's awesome. So everyone out there who's interested in picture books, be sure to check that out. If you're interested in science and science fiction related books, then be sure to check out the book that he mentioned earlier. So please, could you please state the name of the book?
Sure. Frances and the Monster is my debut middle grade novel, and Frances and the Werewolves of the Black Forest is the sequel, which comes out in August of this year.
Yeah, so that's, as you just heard, that's the name of the book. Be sure to check out the first book first before you come to the second book. And if you've already read the first book, then that's awesome. Then just hang tight and pre-order the book as soon as it's available. So on to my next question for you. What really inspired you to write? What got you started in this field?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have, ever since I was very little, I've always been interested in storytelling. And as I grew up, I became interested in a few different ways of storytelling. So for a while, I really wanted to be a musician and a songwriter, and I was in a bunch of bands when I was in middle school and then in high school. And when I was in high school, I started to really become interested in writing and directing movies, and even went to college for that for a little while. But at the core of it was really storytelling, and all the way from when I was just old enough to be learning how to write and learning how to draw and filling up sketchbooks with ideas and pictures and little books and chapters of stories that I would never finish. I had always been writing, and so when I started having kids of my own, I really wanted to take that passion for storytelling and start to create some stories that my kids would be able to read, and that I could give to them as they were growing up. So starting with picture books and now with middle grade books. And Frances and the Monster actually came out right at the right time for my oldest kids to be almost exactly the age that Frances is in the story, which was a lot of fun.
That's actually quite fantastic. I think the inspiration story behind many authors is completely different or somewhat different because, as you said, your inspiration was that you wanted to write because you were into songwriting, storytelling, movie directing, and things like that. And then you also wanted to write a book for your kids. Other authors have said they didn't even plan on writing until the very end, or they have dreamed about writing since the very first day they could start writing letters and sentences. So I think every author has a different story to them. Some of them just out of the blue just decide they want to write. Kind of like me, I used to not like writing at all, and look at me right now. Every writer, every author has a different journey. So based on what you said earlier, you said that you're into songwriting as well earlier. So how was that experience for you?
Oh, it was a lot of fun. When I was in middle school and high school, I mentioned I was in a bunch of bands, and actually I ran a music venue for a couple of years, and we had bands come and play 3 times a week, and it was a great way to meet a bunch of people and have a lot of fun and listen to a lot of great music. And now, actually, my wife Susan is also a songwriter, and she has been putting out music the last few months, which has been great to be able to listen to her music and get some of her songs out there. That's been a lot of fun. So she and I do a lot of creative projects together. We did the What the Dinosaurs Did picture books together, and so it's always fun to not only have our creative projects together, but also kind of get to explore different things on our own, and my middle grade novels and her songs and things like that. So it's always fun to kind of see what each other comes up with.
That's quite interesting, yeah. So what are your thoughts on the publishing industry or the music industry? What are your thoughts? Like, do you feel like there's a difference between the two? Do they kind of like interchange and feel like they're the same? What do you think?
Yeah, there are some similarities. The way that book contracts and record contracts are written, so the way that authors get paid for what they write, and the way that musicians and artists in that industry get paid for what they do is somewhat similar, at least in terms of the traditional publishers and traditional record labels. And there's also some interesting parallels. A lot of what an author does once they've written their book, there's a lot of promotion that happens. So there's podcasts like this one, there's school visits, library visits, book fairs and conferences and things like that. So a lot of traveling around or doing virtual visits like this to promote the book and to be able to engage with readers and talk about your book with either potential readers or students who have already read the book and are doing book clubs and things like that. It's a lot like going out on tour with your music and playing shows with your band and things like that. So yeah, there are some interesting parallels between the two.
Definitely. I think that this is quite interesting because it's maybe a coincidence, I'm not sure. But I also love songwriting. I've recently got into songwriting.
Oh, that's great.
I released a few tracks on SoundCloud. So I think doing writing and singing and songwriting at the same time kind of is like a good way to express, because I think songwriting is all about emotion, storytelling, because like only when your song can tell a story or make people feel the emotion you're trying to feel is when you're doing a good job. Whereas in a story too, you kind of want people to imagine and see what you're trying to write. So those two things also have kind of like similarities, just like how you just said about industries. Like there, one goes to concerts and performs at big venues, whereas the other one travels around the world to read up their books to others or kind of do book signings and things like that. So book signings versus autograph signings or like merchandise stuff, right?
Yeah, and it's all storytelling, whether it's a 60,000 word novel or it's an 8-track song. It's all storytelling in different forms. So it's a lot of fun to be able to explore different ways of telling stories and talking about themes and ideas that interest you, whether it's to music or in the pages of a book.
Absolutely. So my last question for you is, which famous person would you like to eat dinner with and why?
That's an interesting one. I could probably name, maybe a half dozen to a dozen people that I would love to have the chance to sit down and eat dinner with. There is one person in particular. His name is Brian Jakes, and he was the author of the Redwall series of books. There are, I think, almost 24 Redwall books now. And I met Brian Jakes when I was probably about your age, maybe a little younger, at a book signing at a bookstore in Illinois, where I lived at the time. And we got to hear him read part of his books. We got to have our book signed. I have a picture of it. I think I still have the book with his signature in it on my shelves. And so it really was a great experience that I think is a big part of why I ended up writing the types of stories that I have written for the types of readers that I'm writing for. And so I would love to sit down and have dinner with him now that I'm an adult and have written a book of my own. I think we would have a lot of fun things to talk about. Sadly, he passed away maybe 10, 15 years ago. He was an old man even when I met him, with gray hair and probably 16 or 17 books under his belt at that point. But I think that would be a great conversation. And the man wrote great food scenes. He could write a dinner scene that made you so hungry, and it was things like, his characters were all mice and badgers and rabbits and things. So the food was, a lot of acorns and plants and things like that. But it didn't matter. It still made you hungry. So I think that wherever we went to eat, it would probably be some pretty amazing food too.
That's actually pretty interesting, because I think, like, as you just said, that the food which was in there in the book was acorns and things that humans cannot eat, right? Although I mean, I guess humans could eat them if they cooked it.
They're prepared, right? Sure, yeah.
Yeah, but the fact that many people feel hungry shows how well and how much work has been put into it. Because, like, normally food is not really an important detail in books. You can't just like leave it blank, or just like, we ate pizza, or we ate I don't know, noodles or something. They won't specifically be like, oh, the twirly noodles or something, like describing fully. I mean, I know some books they actually describe it in full length, especially if it's fantasy or science fiction, or I don't know, realistic fiction, where it's a mix of universes and everything.
Yeah. He had a lot of fun writing food scenes, and there's actually a scene in my upcoming book, Francis and the Werewolves of the Black Forest, where the characters have a bit of a feast of their own. And I definitely was thinking of his books when I was writing that scene, and had a lot of fun writing the food descriptions and giving a sense of what the food was and where it came from, and who was eating it and why, and how it related to their characters in the scene. So it was a lot of fun. I was definitely thinking of him and the Redwell books when I was writing it.
That sounds amazing. Thank you so much for taking out the time to be on my show today.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So everyone out there listening to this episode, I'll be linking Reef's website into the show notes, so be sure to check that out. His website has all the information you need: his books, his contact information, his press and media stuff, and other things that you can check out. You can find his books online through Libby or your local library, or even in a school library. I'm not sure, but you can request it if you do not have it. And if you're interested in reading the latest book, which is going to be coming in August, you can check that out I'm guessing it's going to be available on Amazon soon.
Yep, it's already available for pre-order now. So if you haven't had a chance to check out Francis and the Monster, please do. And then pre-order Francis and the Werewolves of the Black Forest, anywhere books are sold.
Perfect. So anyone interested, you be sure to check that out. So that's pretty much the end of the episode, guys. Have a great day. Keep reading and keep writing.